John Regas has been free for more than a year and a half now. The former Buffalo Sabres owner and Adelphia Cable CEO spent nearly a decade in prison after a fraud conviction.
But in February of 2016, a judge approved an early release because Regas has terminal cancer. For the last 21 months, he has been living at home in Coudersport, Pennsylvania, where Adelphia's headquarters once stood.
Now, you're probably familiar with the impact the Regas case and Adelphia's bankruptcy had on the Sabres and, of course, the Buffalo economy. But you may not be familiar with the impact it had in Coudersport. That's what 2 on Your Side's Danny Spiewak is here tonight to tell us about. Danny?
Well, Scott Marialis, the Regas family declined an interview for this story. John's son Mike said they felt it was not the right time. But this story isn't really about John Regas. It's about Coudersport, the small town in north central Pennsylvania that was once home to the 5th largest cable company in the United States. When that fell apart, this place could have been doomed. But now Coudersport is on the comeback trail.
A statue of justice stands on top of the Potter County Courthouse, overlooking this hillside town of 2,500. This community had exploded in the early 2000s thanks to the rapid growth of John Regas's cable empire, Adelphia. It was an improbable scenario. This little town suddenly home to a Fortune 500 company, led by a CEO that owned an NHL franchise.
The team they own, the Buffalo Sabres.
John Regas, their owner. Congratulations. We're going to the big dance.
But the bad news came in 2002. John Regas was arrested and led into the streets of Manhattan in handcuffs. Federal authorities accused members of the Regas family of hiding debt and raiding Adelphia's funds for their own personal interests. The Securities and Exchange Commission called it one of the most extensive financial frauds to ever take place at a public company.
We want to be clear that officers and directors of public companies who loot those companies for their own fortunes should not and will not profit from their behavior.
Regas and his son Tim defended themselves vigorously against the charges, noting that outside auditors approved their borrowing, but they were convicted and both went to prison. Adelphia went bankrupt. National media outlets came to Coudersport and wondered how this town would ever survive without Adelphia's 2,000 jobs. 15 years later, we have our answer. On a rainy October day, we drove 2.5 hours to Coudersport to see for ourselves. Our point of contact was Bill Pekarsky, a lifelong Coudersport resident who worked for Adelphia before its downfall.
Coudersport was here before Adelphia. Coudersport's here after Adelphia. Adelphia doesn't define this community. The people here define our community.
The town Pekarsky showed us is not the town many expected it would become. It is very much alive. John Snyder and his wife Olga are the perfect example. They bought this downtown building from Adelphia, turned it into a gallery and cafe, and now they've been open almost 8 years.
People are pretty surprised when they walk through the doors here. They don't expect to find a place like this.
And Main Street is really on the mend. In the past year, at least 7 businesses have moved into open storefronts here thanks to a program that offers discounted rental prices.
We just know that Coudersport has huge potential.
The budding entrepreneurs include Patty Giannotti and Mary Jo Stuckey. They moved to Coudersport 20 years ago during Adelphia's heyday. In July 2016, they opened a coffee shop named Cream and Sugar on Main Street. Their first year in business together has been a success.
Yes! Not killed each other. No.
Potter County officials are equally as enthusiastic. Community Development Director Jennifer Rossman and County Commissioner Paul Heimel, a former Adelphia employee himself, say the post-Adelphia strategy is to draw tourists to shop at their local businesses. Visitors come through this area often for stargazing and camping.
And we live where other people vacation, so it's a really positive thing.
We're seeing people that are starting to show some confidence in this community's ability to bounce back. I mean, we're in a deep hole. We're a community of 3,000 residents, and we lost basically 2,000 jobs.
When Pekarsky lost his job in Adelphia's communications department, he said the transition was rough. But he went back to school, became a nurse, and stayed right here in Coudersport.
You just can't beat the feeling. This is hometown, and we're not going anywhere.
Some thought John Regas would never live to see his town reborn, but he has.
All right, John, love you.
In February 2016, John Regas returned home after nearly a decade in prison. Coudersport threw him a celebration. Some Western New Yorkers may not have understood the celebration they saw on television that night. They see the Adelphia scandal and remember lost jobs and retirement funds, a near catastrophe for the Sabres, and a failed attempt to bring an Adelphia tower to downtown Buffalo. But in Coudersport, many still view Regas as a local hero. They've seen him in public over the last 21 months, including when he threw out the first pitch at a baseball game in Wellsville.
You cannot find anything wrong with his character. His character defines the man, and his character is exceptional.
He seeks vindication. I know the family very well. He's not content that, okay, he's been released from prison. He seeks vindication. They're fighting through the courts. It's a long slog.
But this community has a new identity now. That's why so many people stayed in Coudersport, even when they had the chance to move away.
Many of us who have lived here all our lives, we wouldn't leave. It was all right here. Our family, our community, our comfort level, our sense of community, and we love it here. And we're finding the people who come here and get a little taste of it, they kind of love it too.
There's also another media company in Coudersport now. It's called Zito Media, which is run by one of John's other sons, James. And I mentioned I've been in touch with the Regas family. They tell me that John Regas is in stable condition right now with his health. He will turn 93 years old next week. Danny Spiewak, Channel 2 News.
Thank you, Danny.
That was quite a retrospective, wasn't it? Because, you know, we remember so well, obviously, especially since our fortunes turned here so well at our canal side. It's good to see that the people of Coudersport have pulled together and they're controlling their future. Good for them.
It seems just like yesterday when we saw John Regas with the handcuffs and all of that, too. It's amazing it's been 15 years.
Yeah, well, the people who've known him the longest seem to really embrace him and champion him.
His character also.
That's right. That's right. But great report, Danny. Thank you.
All right.